Welcome back, everyone, to part 5 of the Mount Fuji in Springtime with Cherry Blossoms painting project. Where we left off, I just got done doing some cherry blossoms. Now I need to move on to the little sloping hills that come off the sides, put some grass in, and then maybe start working on the trees that come up from, well, the left side, and then the branches come in from the right. And this painting will be getting that much closer to being done.
Okay, so where I decided to begin was I needed to paint in these little bushes down here because it looked too, I guess, manicured, I guess is the word, for this, where these cherry trees are. I wanted to make it look a little bit more natural, so add some bushes in there, here and there. Not very many, but I think it gives the effect of it being, well, just more being there and a little less touched by man, I guess. Basically just using the same technique as usual, just splotching on color and do a little bit of highlights here and there just to bring out a little bit more of the reflection. And I kind of realized here that it was still too dark in that area behind that nearest tree. I'm not really sure why I had lighter green there. I think I grabbed the wrong color, or I just wasn't looking, or I was trying to do something else. But just darken it up real well, make it look like there's shadow and there's more trees and foliage back there. Now, this technique I got from Kevin Hill, just splotching in a dark color with, I think it's my 3-inch brush, and then using a lighter color to basically brush upward, and you get a nice, easy grass effect. Here was just a mixture of like black and this darker green color, give that like deeper shadow contrast. And here's about what I mean. Just kind of pull up with a lighter color and just layer it back and forth, slowly getting brighter. I just added yellow to the later layers, and it made it look more like grass that's being lit up by sun and just look better. Now, one trick to do with this is don't go too crazy with it. Kind of do random spots and up pulls, I guess is what you'd call that. Because the more random it looks, the more natural it looks, at least to me. And same thing on this side, just that darker color, and smear it in, splotch around, pull up just a bit to give it a little bit more of that contrast. That lighter green in the background really helps kind of show a little bit more, I guess, the darker grass. And then you start layering on these lighter colors. It brings it out a little bit better. Adding a little bit more to the bushes there. There's weren't enough. It just didn't look like it contrasted enough and didn't bring up enough of the foliage or the undergrowth. I think that, yeah, undergrowth, that's what it's called. And here the grass just is a little too plain. And I mean, when you look at grass, it doesn't just stand up unless it's like a manicured lawn. In this case, it's supposed to be kind of wild and unkempt. So you got these long streamers just coming up. And of course, the same thing on the other side. It wouldn't be complete without it. And now finally we come to painting in the big tree on this left hand side. On the other side there'll be just branches coming in, but here it'll be the big tree. And then depending on how it looks, we'll see what happens. All I'm using here is a mixture of like this brown and just black to give it this really dark, not completely black color. And just using my, I think that's my 1-inch brush? Yeah, my 1-inch brush to do the main tree trunk and the biggest runners that come off of it, or the branches that come off of it, not runners. And I just switched to one of my smaller flat brushes. I'm not sure the size on this one. It's not 1 inch, it's smaller than that, but it made it easier doing the smaller squiggly branches. Because that's one of the things I realized when you're drawing like, or painting an actual tree. If you go just straight lines, it just looks weird. But if you do like weird squiggles, it looks way more natural. And here just are the branches coming in from the other side. You don't get to see the tree on this one, which actually made it a lot easier to do the cherry blossoms later. You know, since the last episode, I should have learned my lesson and not put the camera right here where my arm is, because my arm keeps getting in the way and blocking out half the frame, so my bad. And here I began doing highlights for all the branches coming in. There's like 3 different layers of highlights going from that darker color all the way up from like a lighter brown to like almost a beige tan color. And here is the same thing on the other side, just doing the same color scheme. Now, the tree I really wanted to make look right, so I spent a lot of time working on the shadows and the highlights and trying to get texturing and like different shapes into the bark. Alright, so here we are now. The next step is I need to paint in cherry blossoms on the tree and tree branches. The problem with it is I'm not really sure how to do that in a way that's efficient, but also makes them look right. Because obviously I can't do the splotchy painting that I did for all the other trees, which I probably could have done a lot better and not just been so splotchy, but yeah, I'm gonna figure that out. I think what I might do, break out my new set of round brushes. I just got them from one of the local stores. And I think these might work better for being able to paint in each individual petal. But then again, like I said, I don't want to spend like 5 minutes just doing one little cherry blossom. I want to be able to like hit it multiple times and have it all look right. So I think maybe these might work. And here we go, beginning to do the first touches of basically the apple red color from before. I basically just, from here on out, did a bunch of dots and splotches with these round brushes, and then I can't remember the size of the brush, but just went over the whole thing and then just added lighter colors as I went. I really wasn't going for any particular shape to everything. I was just going off the shape of the brush itself, because these flowers are a little bit more distant than you think, especially when you get later in this video seeing the closer branches I put in. And these branches, there weren't enough of them, so I started adding a little bit more, just using a very small, I guess you would consider that a stenciling brush or a round brush or a script brush. That's what it is. Just adding in more of that darker color, just as much as I felt I needed to make it look more realistic. There's a lot more twigs and branches sticking out. And same thing on this side, just the same, dotting everything with this darker red and then blending up with different shades of that red and white to make the pinks. And I added a lot of extra red in there. Obviously, there's going to be more later on in the video, but I had added all this red, and then I needed to add all the twigs in the background behind the tree itself to make it look more 3D, because no tree just grows like what you see there until, well, yeah, it doesn't ever grow that way. So I just added more of the dark lines behind everything to make it look more realistic. So the idea here was to add a lot more red in the background with a smaller brush. So that way it looked more like there's a lot more foliage, or a lot more blossoms back there. Obviously here I'm still doing like highlights and everything, but later on you'll see what I mean. And here I wanted to add a little bit more of the pink color to the red to show a little bit more like sunlight coming from behind the tree. So it wouldn't just be just all red under there. And of course we can't leave out the fact that there would be little grasses sticking up around the base of the tree. So here I'm just painting in with just this basic green color, and I fade it with a little bit more yellow. So here was a truly tricky part. I ended up using chalk to actually draw out the outlines of the branches that needed to come off this inner side of the tree. I'm not really sure they came out looking more or less like they actually came from the tree, and more so like they came from a tree that's closer to us but off the canvas. And I gotta say, these new round brushes I got really came in handy, because the majority of this work was done with those, and my little flat brush there. Well, this episode was supposed to end this series, but I realized I had a lot more to do. So in the next one, we will finish up painting the rest of these branches coming in, and all the cherry blossoms on there. Yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that. Helps me out, helps keep the wife happy, because all this is for her. And thank you all for watching. Bye.